Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Breaking the Game show here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, powered by Manscaped. I'm Stephen Gillespie, and joining me, as he does every week, is my co-host Austin Carr. Austin, how you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm good, Steven. That sounds good, man. Powered by Manscaped. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
excited.
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, we have continued our sponsorship with Manscaped. So just want to encourage everyone to go to manscaped.com, enter in promo code BTG, and that'll get you 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped. Austin, how great is Manscaped?
I'll tell you what, they're one of the best companies. I mean, all of their products are top notch, and they take care of their customers for sure. I mean, 20% off your entire order, free shipping. That's a lot. That can be a lot of money, especially depending on how much you buy. So,
yeah,
it's a heck of a deal. You can't beat it.
And just to let everyone know, we do have some breaking news that we'll get into later through the show on behalf of the folks from Manscaped. It's a pretty big deal.
I don't even know what it is yet.
Don't even know what it is. I have it sealed in an envelope right now, so we'll be learning at the same time as everyone else. So it is pretty groundbreaking, exclusive, never seen before content that we're going to be bringing to you here on Breaking the Game. But Austin, today's show is entitled Standards. And, just to let everyone know up front, we're probably going to run a little bit longer than our allotted time here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. So I want to encourage everyone to go and look up Breaking the Game anywhere podcasts are available. Please go give us a 5-star review, leave us a nice comment, subscribe, and share it with your friends so you can tell them what a great job that we're doing here. Mm-hmm. And just before we get going, our buddy Kenneth at Shoot or Shoot Basketball Pod said Austin 316 said, I'm fired up and ready to go. So Austin,
yes,
we're starting with standards today, and we couldn't get started about standards then the ones who on the basketball team should be leading the charge in terms of standards. And that first off is the head coach in Portland. That's Terry Stotts. So Austin, news recently broke that barring some sort of deep playoff run, Portland may look to move on and replace Coach Stotts after the year. A few names that have been rumored to be in consideration are Jason Kidd, Nate McMillan, who once upon a time coached there, right, Dave Yeager, Chauncey Billups, and Brett Berry. Now, Austin, before we get into kind of the cloak and dagger aspect behind Terry Stotts and he might be moving on, what did you think about the news initially?
It's not surprising. I mean, I feel like he's kind of had his time there to get to a point where they're more of a contender than they are. He's had a lot of teams now where I think going into the season, there's been some big expectations and it just hasn't panned out really. And this season's been rough. I mean, a lot of people had them picked really, really high after the offseason. I didn't really think that their offseason additions helped any of their issues, which were defense and Robert Covington a little bit, but they've had one of the two worst defenses of all time this year. So I think that kind of sounds bad for the coach, doesn't bode well for the coach. Historically bad defense, a team that's underachieved. I mean, they're not going to get rid of Damian Lillard, I don't think. And they're must be pretty hurting for money if they, couldn't possibly pay Gary Trent Jr., which is the only thing I've ever heard for a reason why they traded him. So I don't know how else to really improve a roster that you don't have a whole lot you can do with other than to try to get a new leader. So, I mean, I don't like any time a coach gets fired, really. There may be one coming up here later that I might not feel too bad about. It's pretty interesting. But, he's
one of our favorite names in the NBA right now.
Yes. But not most other people's.
No, not at all, especially on his team, apparently. Right. But anyway, before we get too caught up into that, we'll move on with the Terry Stotts conversation. Yeah. And again, we're getting great feedback. Just appreciate everyone writing into the show. Our buddy Kenneth says Lillard is overrated. I disagree. And then our buddy Mo, first off, said the guys and gave us a little flex symbol. He's got the guns. And Mo is also saying Dame to the Knicks, feeding into the Knicks frenzy that we have on the Off the Ball Network. It's a great place to be if you're a Knicks fan. But speaking of Damian Lillard and kind of trade rumors and stuff like that, there's no trade rumors. But Damian Lillard recently came out and said that he still supports, that's his own words, the quote-unquote still supports Stotts. But he also stated, as far as the big picture, I'm not in control of how that happens. I'm just one person, Lillard said. But I do know I'm someone who needs to be contributing to us making an effort to improve our defense and that's all I can do. Austin, is that all the star player of an NBA team can do? Just be a guy, go out there and play basketball, have no say-so at all on what makes him happy. The cast, the coach that he has around him. Is that all poor little old Damian Lillard can do, is just play his game?
At this moment, that's what he's going to say. That's the line for NBA stars. They're just another guy when something's out of their control that they don't want to deal with. But in contract time comes around, hey, I feel like this is my team. I'm the man on this team. I lead this team. You hear all those lines. But then when something else is some controversy that they don't want to be a part of, it's just all I do is play basketball here. I don't do anything else. Yeah. But I think Damian Lillard is in a kind of a unique position where he's one of the only people on his team that really should have much room to talk about anything. I feel like Damian Lillard goes out there and gives 110% every time he's on the court. And you look around and you see a lot of guys in Portland jerseys just standing there on defense looking at each other. And he is partially right. The coach has a lot to do with defense and effort, and guys not wanting to play for the coach, or not even that, just it gets stale. I think everybody in Philadelphia liked Brett Brown. I think all the players, liked playing for him as a coach, but it got to the point where hearing the same things over and over, you get set in your ways, you get comfortable with certain things that maybe are not the best things to be comfortable with. And it's just how it goes. I don't think I expected anything more from Lillard coming out and, either defending or damning his coach one way or the other. He just kind of stayed right in the middle like they usually do. And I mean, if he came out and gave, said he has 100% has my support, I want him as my coach, like that would probably cause a lot of issues in the offseason if they do really want to get rid of him. And, I don't think that Lillard and Stotts kind of have that kind of a relationship. I think Dame Lillard's probably to the point where he's pretty fed up and not winning more, and stayed in Portland and says he wants to win there. Everybody says he's good enough. So, I mean, hopefully for him, if it does happen, that a new coach will help make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about, Damian Lillard, his impact on the team, maybe trying to force his way into a position to where he can make the move out. Our buddy Mo from the Off the Ball Network.
Do you think that?
I'll get to that. I just want to quote Mo real quick. So he says, no, you're fine. You're fine. Lillard spoke all that loyalty. Now he has to ease his way out. Before I give my opinion, I also want to throw in another wrinkle. So there's more and more to this. As people know who follow the NBA and are close to following players, they'll know that he and Yahoo Sports reporter Chris Haynes are pretty tight friends. Mm-hmm. And Chris Haynes apparently came out with an article about a week ago that was talking about the way that Portland hasn't really done a great job supporting Damian Lillard, and that over the last 9 years that Stotts has been in control, that Lillard has not received any help or received the help that he needs to win a title. And since that article came out, Damian Lillard kind of said, I would expect people to think that I had something to do with this since Chris Haynes and I are friends. I didn't, have any, he basically denied any allegations that he was involved with this. But what we're seeing, and we've seen this with stars throughout, history, Austin, is that when you connect all these little breadcrumbs, it does kind of look like Damian Lillard is up to something, because his buddy Chris Haynes put out this article, and then on top of that, Lillard saying that, I'm not really in control of that as far as big picture goes. That's not my bag. When you start piecing these little things together, man, I think that this is basically Damian Lillard's last-ditch effort to Portland saying, I would love to stay here. Things have to change. You guys need to do a better job of surrounding me. I mean, it's long been documented and speculated and conjectured that CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, the pairing, as fun as it may be to see them go off on some nights, that's not really a defensive backcourt. They're kind of, it's a little bit of duplicity. They kind of step on each other's toes as far as skill set goes. And then they traded Gary Trent Jr. for Norman Powell, which again gave them a little bit more of the same thing. It cut down on their versatility. It gave them more scoring, which isn't necessarily what they needed. They needed kind of a dual forward, kind of defensive minded, game impacting center, like maybe say an Aaron Gordon, who has long been speculated to probably go to Portland. And as we know, he is now in Denver. I don't know. I think that Damian Lillard is making his voice heard a little bit louder than what he probably normally has been in the past. Being friends with a reporter, that is going to keep your involvement a secret because y'all are friends. I think that's I don't know if benefit is the right word, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And then on top of that, Terry Stotts, man, I mean, if you look at his record in Portland, he's 397 and 317 and has only made the Western Conference Finals once. Now, you can point to the Golden State Warriors, you can point to the Los Angeles Clippers and the Houston Rockets, all of those teams that were making their way into the finals. And now you add the juggernaut and the Los Angeles Lakers. It's looking like something's got to shake up.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're Portland. You got to be thinking, well, what's our move? Because we've got to do something to get better. We've got to do everything we can to keep Damian Lillard here. And his best friend is on the team is CJ McCollum, the one guy that they could really probably get some serious trade value back for.
Sure.
That would, so they've been hesitant to split that up. I think they should have split that up 2 years ago, possibly. Yeah. After whatever year they made the Western Conference Finals, the next year when they completely flamed out should have been done after that. I feel like, however long ago that was. So I just think that those two guys together are both so,
kind of redundant.
Exactly. I thank you. That's what I was looking for. They're like copycats of each other, for one. Mm-hmm. They're both not the biggest guards, so it's not like they both have great size, because you could say a lot of these things about Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, but they're both big, versatile forwards that can play all over the court and do all kinds and they're good on defense.
Sure.
And, they're both limited on defense. So you'd like to put a guy that is just, a big physical kind of a dog on defense with a Damian Lillard. Think about how Steph Curry's had Klay Thompson. Who's guarded the best perimeter player on his team every game, basically, of most of their career. And think if Dame had that, and their defense would be significantly better. And I mean, we knew with Cantor that they weren't going to get any defense from him. Carmelo's not going to play any defense, not at this stage in his career. Even if he feels like it, he can't probably real well anymore. And so, this team was always going to try to run up the score on everybody. But at the same time, it didn't make sense when you had what was kind of, to me, blossoming as like a pseudo big three guard set with Gary Trent Jr. I mean, he was playing terrific in McCollum's injury time. Imagine if McCollum's out there and then the defense is even more focused on him and Lillard, and then how many open shots Gary Trent would get in that offense. And who are you going to pick to beat you? It's one of these three, because all three of them can shoot the lights out, and we can only probably stop two of them. And I just think it would have been fun to see for a little while. Portland's just not quite there. So I guess what do you got to do? Get rid of the coach.
Yeah, and we've seen other teams that have looked to elevate themselves that are in small markets that aren't free agent destinations. And basically all you can do if you don't get rid of your star is to make the coaching change. That's the first step whenever you're kind of stagnant. And if you look at the standings right now, currently the Portland Trailblazers are in 7th place. They're a half game back of the Los Angeles Lakers, who are going to be without LeBron James again for some extended time. So it's very well possible that the Portland Trailblazers avoid the play-in tournament. But if they stay the 6th seed, their first round is against the Denver Nuggets. And again, the reports have been saying, barring a deep playoff run, Terry Stotts is in trouble. And I just want to remind everybody that at offtheballnetwork.com, before any of these reports even came out, I went through and put my 7 coaches that I believe were to be on the hot seat. And almost every one of them that have been named, except the next guy, made the list. And I'm surprised that the next guy did make the list, Austin, and that is your hometown Indiana Pacers. And Nate Bjorkrin is looking like he's going to be in trouble in year 1. So, Austin, before I get to your take, I just want to let people know that news is beginning to circulate that Coach Bjorkrin is in trouble in terms of his future with Indiana. Reports state that his relationship with key players needs work, but they cite that the coach is willing to work on that. So there's a little bit of that kind of hopefulness in the writing. And something that I found interesting, Austin, and I didn't even realize this, is that TJ Warren supposedly requested a trade when it was announced that Bjorkrin was going to be named the head coach. Apparently, he had a previous working experience during his time in Phoenix. Apparently, Nate Bjorkrin was one of the assistant coaches over there. And there's also speculation that when he opted out into surgery, that part of the reason, I'm not going to say all of it, but part of the reason was because he wasn't looking forward to working with Nate Bjorkrin again. And Austin, I want to get your take before we kind of get into even more of what's going on in Indiana under Nate Bjorkrin there.
Yeah. So just it's been crazy, the whole situation. Like, not what you would expect at all. It's a chink in the armor of the Nick Nurse coaching tree, if you will. All we've heard is good things about everybody that's ever worked with Nick Nurse or played for him and coached with him, and all. This guy won at every single level. He worked with Nick Nurse, and it kind of sounds like he's a guy that was really, really good at being on the good side of his bosses and not so much with maybe the players, or maybe he just, when he was in that lead role, it doesn't work for whatever reason. But without really, mixing words too much, everything you hear around here is there's no way in the world he's going to be the coach here next year. I mean, I've heard things from that players have said. We've seen stuff on the court now. I think just last night that wasn't necessarily right towards Bjorkrin, but it was towards his staff, and that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And it just, imagine if there were 19,000 people in the building, or it was in New York and not Indiana, how much more people would be talking about that.
Oh, 100%.
It's just, apparently they don't like his attitude is what I read. They said that his message doesn't come across as like genuine, and that the players really, really don't can't accept his message for whatever reason and don't really want to play for him. And I've kind of feel like that's how it's looked on the court.
Yeah, 100%. And it's weird because this lets you know the state of the NBA, and I don't want to sound like one of those old heads that say, back when I first started watching basketball, it was different, but it's kind of weird that your coach can be in hot water because he's just not like the nicest guy. It's funny to me because I remember being in high school, man. My high school coach would call me every name, under the sun, and I would still just keep playing basketball and try harder, right? So it's just weird to me how.
But did you have a good relationship with that coach? Did you want to play for him? Like, you want to work hard for him? See, 100%. That's the thing. And I don't think it's just that he's probably, yelling at guys or saying things they don't want to hear. If it were just, he's too tough on the team, and it felt like that, I'd be probably killing.
Seen that with Jim Boylan in Chicago, though.
Yeah, that's true. He got his share. He got his fair chance, though. He was there for more than just
more than a year
like that. And in that situation, it was just the players didn't like his style. It wasn't like everything you're hearing about this is like, even down to like the lunch room workers don't like the way that he talks to people, and don't like the way he talks to them, and office people and people within the organization. That, like, the only other time I ever heard anything like that was in Golden State, when they all said after Mark Jackson left that nobody really liked him. And that didn't even sound nearly as contentious or rough as this has sounded. So it's something that I don't know that I've ever really seen to this level.
It's because they were winning in Golden State still. So winning helps a little bit and buys you a little bit of time. But with what we're seeing in Indiana, I mean, right now they're 30-35. They're 9th place in the Eastern Conference. After going 45-28, being the 4th seed last season. And before I get into who used to coach and how they're probably missing him a little bit of baby comeback action going on there. Other things are going on underneath Nate Bjorkrin, who, again, when you're put in this position, you got one of only 30 jobs in the entire world available. It's not always fair that other people can kind of be your responsibility, but I mean, that's what you get paid the big bucks for, and that's what you signed on for. Longtime assistant Billy Bano resigned earlier this season. Austin, you probably remember this when it happened, because he allegedly didn't want to work with Nate Bjorkrin anymore. He just quit, and there's not very many assistant coaching jobs, especially in the middle of the season, that you can just go and get. And then also, Austin, you touched on this, that current assistant Greg Foster was suspended for how he handled an altercation with Goga Bitadze after Bitadze hit a 3 and basically told him to sit the bleep down.
Yep.
And Greg Foster was about ready to come to blows with Bitadze on the court. And that's a reflection a little bit of the culture that Bjorkrin has not instilled. The level of communication, the level of respect between both sides, the coaching staff and the players, that doesn't reflect well upon his leadership style.
No, it doesn't. And regardless of how the Pacers did in the playoffs the last few seasons, one thing when you watch them is you never questioned their heart or their willingness to be in that game or their work ethic, things like that. It was, are they good enough? And I think last year, a lot of people saw that, hey, we weren't healthy all year. We were without Sabonis in the playoffs, but for a long part of the season, we were probably good enough. And then this year comes along and it's like expectations were fairly high. I was pretty, gung-ho for the Pacers this year and thought their coaching
started well too. The season
I thought their coaching move was the perfect move because I looked at the statistics, and 2 years in a row they were in the top 5 in 3-point shooting as a team and in the bottom 5 in attempts. And this year, for this almost mainly the same guys, they're taking a lot more threes and missing way more of them than they were the season before. So that didn't work out for whatever reason. And this year, definitely, especially since at least after the All-Star game, I know my article probably hurt some people, and that's probably part of the reason they're not playing as well. But the whole All-Star thing. But ever since then, they just kind of have seemed listless out there, like they're just out there to going through the motions. And whatever Foster said to Batazzi last night really upset him, huh? Because you don't see that a whole lot. Right in the middle of the game on the court, just pointed right at him like that. Like he wanted to make sure everybody that was there knew.
From a European player too, right? Like how often do you see a European player just behave in such a way?
And one who's recently especially gotten a lot more playing time and shouldn't really have a whole lot of reason to be too frustrated with anything. Like he's kind of, benefited from their season not being what they expected. So it's crazy. The whole thing's pretty contentious, I think. And it's not very often you hear anybody say anything bad about like personally about people in sports like this, especially coaches. And so when you hear that stuff, it kind of raises some alarms for sure.
Yeah, and what's also interesting, Austin, is that we were talking about Portland and how there's already names starting to circulate in, and we don't have that with Indiana. Now, that Indiana can be a little bit of cheap when it comes to spending money on head coaches. I mean, you being in Indiana, you realize this. In Portland, they have a star, like a legit star, like a top 20 player in the NBA. I think we can say that and agree upon that. We may vary on where we have him, but I think at the end of the day, we agree he's top 20. So you have a top 20 player. There's only 30 teams in the NBA, so you're in a good situation with that, right? You have to make him happy. Portland's in a situation, GM Olshey has to make the moves to make him happy, or he has to go. In Indiana, you don't have necessarily a star player. You have all-star level players, but you don't have like that top 20 player in the NBA. You have a lot of good, talented two-way players, but again, no star. And as far as we know, based on history, that the last time Indiana has spent money on a coach was Larry Bird, and that was, a long time ago.
Larry Bird.
Yeah, so with Larry Bird, that was a long time ago where he was coaching, was, coach of the year at one point. We know that some players are injured. We know that players are going to come back, and reports have stated that Bjorkrin is by all means like trying to improve what he is doing. Do you think that it's possible that Nate stays one more season, or do you think that it's just too much damage has been done?
It really depends on those exit interviews they do at the end of the season. If the players are fed up and aren't going to do it and don't want to play for this guy, Kevin Pritchard's had some time there now, and he's had some chances. He's probably got to be thinking, hey, I've got to get this one right. We can't waste another season with this guy. I think a lot of fans were really, really upset that they didn't go after like a Mike D'Antoni. They just wanted a big name because the Pacers don't do that. But in their defense, most of the time when they do this new coach or guy that maybe doesn't have a big name, it works out fairly well for him. Vogel was good. Rick Carlisle, I think, got his. It wasn't his first head coaching job. I think it was, but he was good there. And Nate McMillan wasn't by any means a young, inexperienced head coach, but Nate McMillan gets such a bad rap. I don't need to get into all that. I just feel like they've been pretty good at getting these guys that are a little lesser known and developing them, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but they work out.
Yeah.
And this just absolutely did not. So I could really easily see him switching gears and saying, okay, we're going to get a proven name right now to make sure, give our guys one more good chance at this. We tried this way. It was a disaster. I got to do something. Let's do this.
Yeah. And again, the whole Baby Come Back song comes to mind when you just brought up Nate McMillan. It's crazy that Indiana made the run that they did with injuries. How much better do you think this team would have been this season with Nate McMillan adding, let's just say that Karis LeVert ends up on this team too, with Brogdon, LeVert, Warren, Sabonis, Turner. Like, that's a good squad. And then you have, the Holidays come off the bench, McConnell come off the bench, Lamb come off the bench, McDermott come off the bench under a Nate McMillan, who in Atlanta, since he was named the interim coach, has gone 23-10, along with being the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference, when last season they only won 20 games and were the 14th seed.
Right. And this is what I was thinking about Nate McMillan. Like, he gets this horrible rap for his playoff losses. He was an 8th seed once. He lost to Tim Duncan once. He lost to Karl Malone once. And he lost to Chris Webber once. And then he lost to the Heat that went to the finals. Like,
he's lost to the teams that your job is, like, if we're going to talk wrestling,
he lost to teams that went to the finals year after year.
Yeah, if you're, like, to put it in wrestling terms, he's supposed to put them over. You know what I mean? Like, they're supposed to rise to the top and be the champions in the NBA. He has not lost to a subpar team or a team without any talent. He has lost to tremendous teams.
Right. And he's a coach that can get the most out of your young team that, is on its way up, or that you want to figure out if these guys are going to be our guys or not. Like, Nate McMillan's perfect for that. And we don't really even know that he wouldn't be great with a championship level team, because he's hardly ever been a top seed. He's never, I mean, I don't remember a time that he's been the coach and his team has had first round home court advantage even.
Maybe the Portland Trailblazers with Roy.
I think one time with Portland. But it's just, so it'd be amazing, wouldn't it be, if Kevin Pritchard somehow got him to come back next year if the Hawks don't keep him?
Well, the Trailblazers are already courting him, apparently.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think
Nate McMillan's by far the name I'd go after first on that list you named off. I love Chauncey Billups. I hope he gets his shot. I like seeing new guys get a chance. But if I could get Nate McMillan, I'm getting Nate McMillan.
Yeah, because you know that you're going to have a good team. And look at Atlanta again. They're a half game back of the 4th seed. Right. And again, you talked about a young team. What did we hear all season long under Coach Pierce is that, John Collins wasn't happy with the way that Trae Young was playing basketball. Trae Young and Coach Pierce didn't get along with one another, right? And now all of a sudden you insert Coach Nate McMillan, and they're 6-4 in their last games. They're on a 3-game winning streak, and they have a winning record on home, and they're 3 games away from having a winning away record.
And, a couple months ago, if I was a Knicks fan going into these playoffs, I'm looking at that first round matchup with Atlanta and saying, "Ooh, baby, I want that." Not now.
I think they want Boston.
I think they could. And Miami would be fun too, I think.
Yeah.
Boston, yeah. I don't know though. Sorry, Nate McMillan. That's right. That's what we're talking about, Nate McMillan. Imagine if he was still with the Pacers this year, though. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
They had a
great start this season.
They absolutely won that trade for Karis LeVert. If he was healthy all year, I mean, he's younger than Oladipo. His contract is much less. He's under control for 2 years longer. His averages are higher. He's a better shooter. And I mean, he's everything Victor Oladipo kind of was before he got hurt. And I think that's what's weird is Kevin Pritchard makes these good moves. I think with this roster, I think they've got a solid roster. I hope and pray that if they get rid of, yes, I did. I got
Mo writes in and said Austin got caught up with the Knicks.
I got distracted by the Knicks, but
haven't we all?
I hope and pray that if they're going to trade one of the 2 big guys, that it's Sabonis and not Turner. but I just see it being Turner. I love Sabonis, and he's an all-star, but the numbers kind of show that they're the same exact team with him on the bench as they are with him on the court. Their plus minus is almost identical. And with Turner, their analytics, I like them a lot more. So I don't know. We'll see what they do. But I would have just loved to see Mcmillan with this team this year. I think they could have easily challenged for maybe even the third spot this year.
Yeah, with that being said, they're 2 games back of the Charlotte Hornets for the 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. So not all hope is lost under Nate Bjorkrin, but it certainly is not looking great. So Austin, before we keep going, and please tune in because we're going to talk about the play-in tournament, and everybody has been lamenting this thing apparently, and I'm sure this is where we're going to spend a good part of our evening. But before we do, Austin, we have breaking news from the world of Manscaped. All right, so we're sorry, not sorry. We're going to interrupt this programming with breaking news. This is an important public service announcement brought to you by Manscaped.com. This is your public service announcement and the news that you've all been waiting for. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0, Austin, which is now available for purchase in the United States and Canada. This new trimmer was just released only moments ago. Today was the release date, Austin. Wow. And we are one of the first to get our hands on it and share the news. Join over 2 million men worldwide. You're looking and talking to 2 of them right now with this exclusive offer just for you. That's 20% off and free, not just shipping, Austin, but worldwide shipping.
Wow.
With the code BTG at manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I'm blown away with the performance. The craftsman and the details on it are next level. Their advanced ceramic blade and skin-safe technology is so good that it almost seems as if Manscaped worked with Elon Musk and his engineers to ensure that your testes are as safe as possible. What makes this trimmer different than all other trimmers, you might ask, is that this new multi-function on-off switch can give you an engaged travel lock, and it's created for people who like to travel. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn on the 4,000 LED spotlight on and off whenever you need a more precise shave.
Jeez.
The trimmer allows you even to customize your trim all over through additional guard links with sizes 1 through 4. And looks-wise, it's sleek with 2-tone matte and gloss finish. Even features a hot foil stamped black chrome Manscaped logo. Wow. Show that mower off loud and proud. The optimized Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is waterproof, so you can groom in the shower. And you don't even have to worry about making a mess on the bathroom floor. Did I mention, Austin, this thing has wireless charging. The Lawnmower 4.0 is new wireless charging system. Awesome. It uses electromagnetic induction, which can help the battery length last even longer than before. If you're still trimming your face with your ball trimmers, it's time to make some changes. First, get 20% off and free shipping with code BTG at manscaped.com. And no one wants to end up with their pubes in their mouth, and your balls will thank you. Austin, what do you think about that exclusive breaking news?
So I can't think of another company or another product that as soon as they come out with a brand new thing, they immediately give you 20% off and free shipping. Usually the brand new thing is the only thing you can't get 20% off of. So it's pretty awesome that you guys still get that great deal. I'm glad you talked about that travel thing with it, because I couldn't figure out what they could possibly improve from the 3.0. So it is cool looking. I got to see a picture of it. It does look pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, as always, feel good in your hands. Like Thanos says, it's balanced like all things should be. Right. You don't have to wince. You got a dope LED light. It's waterproof. It's versatile. It looks good. It feels good.
Dude, geez.
Yep, you could personalize it. You can, you can do the whole bonsai thing if you're into that. Little Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, whatever you're into, you can get it with the folks over at Manscaped. So please go to manscaped.com.
Dude, I'll tell you, I can't tell you, there's been several times where really I have turned down offers to buy cards on the internet because how expensive the shipping is from like Canada and other countries. So worldwide free shipping is a heck of a deal too.
Yeah. So again, please go to manscaped.com, enter in promo code BTG. That'll let them know that we sent you, and we will hook you up with a great deal. That's 20% off and free worldwide shipping at Manscaped. And our buddy Mo says, y'all are hilarious. We try our best. Manscaped basically sells itself.
Dude,
they just gave
that's
us
awesome. Like, we just officially get started with them, and they dropped that in our lap. Like, how could they get any better?
Dude, yeah, we just got started with them, and they're saying, hey, look, we want to unveil this new product with you guys. Shout out to Mo Murphy, who is writing in over at Up in Flames podcast. He can get you that deal too, but you got to tune into his show to figure out how to be able to do it. So go look up in Flames pod, wherever podcasts are available. Follow him on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And not only we have a good time learning some things, but you'll get hooked up with a great deal over there. All right, Austin. So we learned about Manscaped. We learned about taking care of yourself. How else can we talk about taking care of yourself other than your professional image? Now, Austin, LeBron James, in his second game back from the longest absence in his NBA career, he sounded off about the play-in tournament. He stated that it doesn't matter if they are 5th or 6th place or that playoff thing, and I'm quoting him, that playoff thing, whatever it is, whoever came up with that, needs to be fired, but whatever. So, Austin, obviously LeBron James is upset. I have a couple reasons. I'm going to bounce these off of you, and I want to get your take.
Okay.
One, his team lost consecutive games since he returned, and then the next game that he didn't play, they won that very next game. Mm-hmm. Two, the team has gone 2-5 since AD's return, and they play tonight. If you're listening, you're hearing us on Friday. So today, when we're recording this, is Thursday. They play the Clippers tonight. So obviously, some of these stats may change one way or the other. So the team is 2-5 since AD's return. 3, not only did he lose 2 consecutive games, but Austin, they were to Sacramento and Toronto. Now, I will say Sacramento was on a 4-game win streak, so maybe they're figuring something out, or teams are just looking to kind of mill it in against where they're playing them. But they're 2 non-playoff teams. And then finally, Austin, it's a possibility, but maybe not likely, but it is possible that the Lakers could be in the play-in tournament. Now, all of those things are kind of factors that I have in mind for why he might be upset. What do you think?
Well, first off, the Kings are winning games because as soon as they're out of it and, need to try to tank to get a top pick, they do Kings things and win games they don't want to win. That's why. But anyway.
Like the Timberwolves.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that. Just like the Timberwolves. Now when it doesn't matter, you guys win. Good job. So I think LeBron might be a little bit more hurt than they want to let on, and he's pulling something, an old trick out of the bag to kind of get the media's attention over here. Well, hey, we didn't play good those 2 games because I can't go. My ankle's not good, and he's back out. And like you said, as soon as he went back out, they won. And that might be because he was a liability out there. And if that's the case, the Lakers are 100% in trouble because we've seen this song and dance 1,000 times. Anthony Davis isn't taking them to the finals this year without LeBron. And if that's the case, then like I said, this is going to be a really interesting Western Conference playoffs. If LeBron's not healthy, the Lakers are still like, even though they're 6 or 7 games over 500, about to be maybe in this play-in tournament. I think a lot of people around the NBA and myself included still feel like if they're healthy, they're the team to beat for sure. So it could be that, or it could be tongue in cheek completely, and LeBron's just playing a joke on everybody. And I don't think it is this, because I don't think he's smart enough to think of this. But he's
intelligent. He's intelligent. I'm not going to say he's not.
Evil genius, and this would be kind of evil genius, different kind of intelligence. A year ago or whatever it was, he claims to had this conversation bringing up this idea of the play-in. He may have been talking about himself when he said whoever created this idea needs to get fired. That was something that I heard that I thought was interesting. But regardless, I'm not here for it. I don't want to hear any NBA players complaining about an extra game. I don't care if it's 2 games. I don't care if you feel bad that you were battled for the 8th seed and wanted to, deserve to be in the playoffs. Well, if you deserve to be in the playoffs, you should have gone and won that 1 more game. We're not asking for a whole nother 7-game series. We're not asking for, an extra month to the season. It's 1 more game. I mean, come on.
Or if you have an off night, you have 1 more chance to redeem yourself.
Right. Exactly. It's caused so many teams other years that would be completely out of it to continue to play hard and towards the end of the season. And I think we're going to have some pretty interesting, seeding battles here coming down the stretch. And these play-in tournaments are looking like they're going to be pretty exciting. I'm tired of hearing professional athletes talk about how much rest they need. I'm not here saying, oh, in the 80s and the 90s, everybody played every game and they were real men. I don't care about that. I'm just sick and tired of hearing about it, really.
Yeah, and I think people are getting a little bit of that regular season fatigue now because we can see the finish line, Austin. The playoffs are in the distant future. We can see them coming. Right. And we basically know almost who's going to be where. Granted, a couple teams are still fighting, like you said, for
you were the
seeding.
First person that brought up to me the fact that the first and second seeds won't know who they're playing, and that's I like that wrinkle a little bit.
Well, yeah, so let's dive in on that because right now LeBron James, we'll touch on another couple people who are voicing about how this play-in tournament is unfair. My humble opinion, Austin, is that what used to be the biggest reward for you for competing all season long, trying everything, especially now, right, with COVID protocols, you're trying to mind your P's and Q's, trying not to let your teammates down, trying to do the right thing. So right now, Utah and Phoenix, they're in a battle for the number 1 and 2 spots right now. When their season is over, they have no idea who they're going to be playing against. And what kind of reward is that for the best teams who have done everything that they could? They've stayed healthy, they've stayed out of trouble, they've played well together. I mean, we talk about Utah and Phoenix. These are some of the most fun teams that we could watch all season long this year. Mm-hmm. They've worked the hardest. Their coaches have put in all the time, effort, and energy in order to enable their teams to be where they are. And when the season's over, they have no idea, Austin, if they're going to play LA, Portland, Memphis, Golden State, San Antonio, or New Orleans. Right. They have no idea who they're going to play against, and what kind of reward is that for being the best teams in the conference.
This is kind of a perfect storm situation for that scenario, this thing we're talking about too, because if we're sitting here and the Spurs and the Pelicans are going to be 7th and 8th and you're not sure which one you're going to play, is that big of a deal which one they're going to play? I think they're pretty confident they're going to win that series.
Sure.
Either team. But now you got the Lakers and Dallas that could possibly be in this play.
Portland. Golden State could get hot for a game.
It does kind of put you at a little bit of a disadvantage for a number 1 or 2 seed to find out, right beforehand, hey, now we're playing LeBron and Anthony Davis instead of we could have been playing DeMar DeRozan and a bunch of young guys. No offense to them, but it's a completely different series. And so this is going to be very interesting, but I love it. I'm here for all the drama. I like all this stuff. I think it's great for the fans. Mm-hmm. I think a big argument for a long time has been how meaningless the regular season feels. Because it's a long, long regular season, and the last 2 weeks of the season, most years where 80% of the playoff field is going to be and who it is going to be. And we're to that point now, and we're not sure really where anybody's going to finish, who's going to be in this thing or not. And normally it wouldn't matter where they're going to finish, really, in the big picture. But now it's like you got to finish here to stay out of this thing if you don't want to be in it. And it's just brought excitement all around. I love it.
Yeah, and a couple of things that I want to add on before we continue down our notes here is that we have about maybe 6 teams at the most who are looking to tank. Whereas in previous years, you got about, 10, 12 teams?
Right.
Looking to improve their draft standing.
Yeah.
And it's ugly basketball. Everyone complains that I can't watch, I can't watch the NBA come March, April, May. I can only watch the front of the year and then I tune in for the playoffs. Now you have a race where let's see here, for 5th, 6th, and 7th, they're all within a game of each other. Mm-hmm. And then a couple games back, you have in the play-in tournament, you have Grizzlies are 14 and a half games back. Golden State's a half game back of them, and San Antonio's 2 games back. So in the Western Conference, people are still jockeying for position. Now, if you flip over to the East, the Nets are 2 games back of the first seed. The Milwaukee is one game back from there. So even in the top 3 teams, because once you take a step away from them, there's a little drop there. But still, the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference, theoretically, they could fall in any which way. And then in the 4th, all the way down to the 8th seed, they separate 4.5 games. Uh-huh. And then 2 games back from that is the 9th seed, and then a half game from that is the 10th seed. You don't know what's going to happen until it's done. And I love that aspect.
The 10th seed in the East is one of the hottest teams right now, and one of the teams that you don't want to see get in, and they wouldn't have a chance any other year. They're not getting all the way up to 8th by the end of the year, but they get in that play-in tournament, and Russ and Beal can beat any of the teams they would have to play in a one-game thing, and that's exciting to me because otherwise this whole hot streak that they've been on wouldn't mean really anything because they're not going to make it. But now all they got to do, all these teams just are thinking we just have to get in that game, and then anything can happen. It's kind of gives it a little bit of a March Madness feel to it. And
I love it because look, Scott Brooks has more of an incentive than ever to coach his butt off now because again, a 10th seed and you're out, that may not be enough to keep your job, but it's something you could point to late in the season, whereas earlier in the year it didn't look like Washington is going to be where they were. But Austin, I want to focus in on what else LeBron James has said, right? Because this actually, he was actually for the play-in tournament last season when it was just the 8th seed, having to fight it out with the 9th seed. And he said, he wanted to see teams like Memphis, Sacramento, New Orleans, and Portland. They wanted to see it battle it out. But in 2018, when he was asked about the play-ins, but in that quote, they was also talking about the mid-season tournament. He said that they were, quote, whack and, quote, corny in 2018. And we know that Luka Doncic and Mark Cuban both spoke out against it. Luka Doncic, back when they were the 7th seed, ever since they've been up to the 6th seed now, you haven't really heard anything out of them. But back when they were the 7th seed, Luke was like, I just don't understand the point of it. Maybe you lose 2 games and then you're out of the playoffs. What kind of thing is that? And then Mark Cuban was a part of the, competition committee who not only voted, but voted unanimously. Like, shout out to Steph Curry's MVP. No one voted for anybody but Steph Curry. Nobody voted for anything other than to approve this play-in tournament. And then Mark Cuban, they just so happened to be the 7th seed. And then they want to kind of squeal about it. And now they're the 6th seed. You haven't heard from Mark Cuban or Luka Doncic ever since.
No, you haven't. And you haven't really heard a peep out of a team that's not in jeopardy of being in the play-in say a bad thing about it. You never
Excuse me, they're in 5th place now.
Right. Yeah, they're pretty safe. I think they're pretty safe. But you haven't heard a governor complain about it. They all wanted it. Everybody in the league office wanted it. All
unanimously voted.
All the fans wanted it during the time off before the bubble when there was no basketball going on. How exciting it sounded until their team, they realized, we're going to get hurt by this. We don't like this. And that's weak. I'm sorry. Luka Doncic is in his 3rd year in the NBA, and he could be the face of the league in a year or two. Really, he's that good enough, and he can do anything he wants on a basketball court. And for him to complain about having to play 1 extra game,
in his defense, the current face of the league is doing it right now.
Right, and he shouldn't be doing it either. So the whole thing with LeBron going back and forth like that, it's either last year he knew that they were trying to do it and the league wanted his help, kind of trying to push it through.
They were the number 1 seed in the West. Yeah, sure.
Right. He didn't have to worry about it. Say what they want to hear. So, I make these guys happy because it sounds like in 2018, he wasn't for it. It sounds like he's not for it now. Maybe his real opinion is that he didn't want to do it, but he's like, hey, I'm never going to be in this situation. It doesn't really bother me.
Or maybe his real opinion depends on where he currently is at, with his team.
That's what I was just going to get to. It's just all smoke and mirrors because his injury is worse than he wants to let on. And that really does worry me.
Or maybe the injury, or maybe he's kind of painting this narrative that Austin, I'm never going to be 100% again, and then I'm going to go out and put up 35, 9-9.
All the way I took the 7th or 8th seed all the way to the finals and won a title, defied the odds, like you said. And I think LeBron's really, really into defying the odds.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened when a guy that we're going to talk about here in a minute, Russell Westbrook, was averaging triple doubles, consistently. And LeBron, instead of just saying, hey, congratulations, Russell Westbrook, he was like, they hate us, they always count us out. And he put him in a picture with Russell Westbrook, congratulating him alongside LeBron James, instead of just being like, hey, bro, you're doing great. Good job.
Right. LeBron's one of the most successful, most popular
underdogs in history,
human beings in the history of really anything, really. I mean, everything he touches turns to gold, yet he absolutely loves to make it feel like the deck is stacked against him at all times.
Kid from Akron, bro.
Yeah,
just a kid from Akron.
And I mean, whatever, more power to you. Do what you want. Yeah. If that's how you need to, motivate yourself. Michael Jordan made up stories that people didn't say about
Shaquille O'Neal. Same thing.
Yep. So whatever you need to do to get yourself into that level, I guess that works.
Yeah. And again, Austin, I mean, we're talking about the Los Angeles Lakers.
Mark Cuban's going to Mark Cuban. Mark
Cuban's going to Cuban. Yeah. And again, they're going to complain and everything else. But right now, they have an identical record as the Dallas Mavericks. But we know that since Dallas holds the tiebreaker through the season series over them, that if they finish with an identical record, that Dallas will be placed over them. That's why you see them at 5th place. But Dallas and LA are tied. So hopefully, depending on who loses to who wins against who, LA at best, being 10.5 games back, the best that they can finish this season, Austin, is 5th place. Because if you look at the distance between 5th and 4th, that's 6.5 games back. Each team roughly has about 7-8 games, depending on who's who. You got to hope that everybody is losing every game and you're winning every game. Oh, and by the way, the Los Angeles Lakers are going to be without LeBron James for quite some time. And again, the Los Angeles Lakers have been 2-5. We'll see what happens in tonight's bout against the Los Angeles Clippers. But since AD has been back without LeBron, they've been 2-5. And Austin, you've pointed this out, and I've shared it in the group chat, plug for the group chat, that Anthony Davis might be the best player in the NBA who can't be his team's best player.
Right.
And I agree with that.
It's hard it's weird just when you hear it like that, but I mean, I know you know what the mind track I'm on there. Like when he's next to LeBron, the two of them together look like maybe 1 and 2 sometimes. He can play so good. But when LeBron's not there and he's number 1, it just doesn't work and for a while now, I've kind of wondered if it's just because he's a big man, because you don't see big guys lead.
It's really hard.
But I mean, Denver's doing it this year. Philadelphia's doing it this year. You see Milwaukee's done it for a couple years. They've struggled in the playoffs though too, and they've looked better than as a number 1 guy than Anthony Davis has. Like Anthony Davis since about 4 years ago, even that long, I haven't really worried about him leading his team to an upset victory in the playoffs. I don't expect it, and I wouldn't expect it with the Lakers. I mean, this is exactly like the Pelicans team he was on without LeBron.
100%. I'm glad you said that. That's where I was going to take it because, sans LeBron James on this team, it looks a lot like the New Orleans Pelicans. And it's not to say that Anthony Davis never had, great players there. I mean, you're talking about what Drew Holiday is doing in Milwaukee, what he did in New Orleans without Anthony Davis. I mean, Drew Holiday is a tremendous player. We're looking at what Julius Randle is doing in New York this season. Holy cow, like everybody wants him to be MVP this year. He's going to be the most improved player in the NBA. Yes. And he's played alongside him. He's had, a hurt, yes, DeMarcus Cousins. He's had Austin Rivers. He's had competent, good NBA players on his team. And he's won, one playoff series?
Yeah. And even in the times he does win, even when just games he wins in the playoffs, it's an absolute struggle. I mean, he scores 45 points and they win by 2 or 3. I feel like was what it always was when they won in the playoffs. He had to do everything he could possibly do to get them to win, and it's just it doesn't work with him as the lead guy. He needs to be set up in his spots. I think he needs to get the ball in the right places. And I mean, let's be honest, there's almost nobody better to do that for him than LeBron. And
you're talking about one of the best playmakers of all time. And again, with Anthony Davis, Austin, this is not to discredit him or to say that he's a bad player. He's a tremendous, again, a top 15 NBA player.
Not a whole lot of guys his size can go off for 50 in any given night. He definitely
and be the best defender on your team while doing it. He can't be, shout out to Rashad Phillips. He's been killing in his analysts a lot lately. But, LeBron James is the engine on this team. He's your dual forward. He's the engine on this team.
Yeah, I've been thinking about what you said about that engine thing ever since LeBron's been out, and it's been interesting. But I feel like KCP has kind of taken over that spot, and it was cool to see because he's like the exact same. He's a little bit smaller than LeBron, but he's kind of fits the same mold.
He's a lot smaller than LeBron.
But I mean, he's a bigger guard that you wouldn't really consider a point guard or a 2, and he's kind of stepped into the role that. And, obviously didn't fill LeBron's shoes. No, I just thought it was interesting. No. It made me think about that, and I wonder if there's this position thing, if guys can slide up and down it with if they need to, kind of thing.
Well, we need to have Rashad back on, and we can ask him about that. But again, Anthony Davis being this hybrid post a la Kevin Garnett, KG, great as he was, didn't have a heck of a whole lot of success being the team's best guy, goes to Boston, and life's made a little bit easier when you have a guy like Ray Allen and Paul Pierce and Rajon Rondo and Kendrick Perkins and a James Posey, and you get all these great players alongside you, Sam Cassell and Eddie House, Leon Powell, Glenn Davis.
Example. With Rondo, like we say it all the time, there's guys that aren't that great on a losing team, but you put them with a winning team and a bunch of good players, look how great they are. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what Anthony Davis is. He's just one of the great players too.
Yeah, 100%. But again, Austin, it's a little bit of panicking going on in the La La Land, and
the Lakers need to panic if LeBron's not healthy. But other than that, I don't think they could possibly care less what position they finish in the playoffs.
I don't want them out of the playoffs. I want to make this clear first, because I don't want anyone to hear this and be like, this clown. I want them in the playoffs. I don't think that the playoffs would be better without them. Right. But Austin, how cool would it be to obviously, if everything is right, everything's humming and clicking. Again, they got to get their injuries right, and they also have some chemistry stuff to build on with some of the additions that they made in the offseason that they still haven't had a whole heck of a lot of time to play with each other, and in the buyout market with Andre Drummond. But how cool would it be to see the Lakers in Utah or Phoenix in the first round of the playoffs?
That'd be wild. Well, imagine if they had to play the Warriors in the play-in. That'd be a fun scenario. Steph versus LeBron for a spot in the playoffs.
Because everyone complains about the competitiveness of the first round in the playoffs. They're like, everyone wins.
Say they get past that hurdle. Then you got LeBron and the Lakers versus, this Jazz team that is trying to be, one of these teams that comes around every decade or so that doesn't necessarily have that number one big name guy that can win it all. Or Chris Paul, who's never won a title and comes by some people not considered a winner for that, which is crazy because he gets hurt or he's had other things happen, but he wins everywhere he goes. So you'd love to see him have a chance to win a ring, and he's got to play LeBron in round one. Oof, that would be wild.
It's been in a boat, buddy, 100%. But Austin, we're up against it. We're going to close out for our Nothing But Net channel here on Dash Radio. But I just want to encourage everyone who wants to hear about our award criteria. We're going to be breaking down some of the news that came out with the way that the certain players are going to be able to be voted in for all NBA teams. Certain players are going to be allowed to play multiple positions. Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic are going to be allowed to be forwards and centers. Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler are going to, and Kawhi Leonard are going to be guards and forwards. Certain players such as Clint Capela and Giannis can only be their positions. Zion Williamson can only be a forward. And we're going to talk about how crazy that is. And we're going to give you a whole bunch of logic and reasoning behind it. We're not just going to be giving conjecture. We got facts in front of us. Oh, and we're going to be talking about how Russell Westbrook got snubbed for Eastern Conference Player of the Month. And if you want to hear more about that, I've
got a lot to say yet, so you guys don't want to miss it.
Austin is going to unload on this Russell Westbrook discussion. He's about to open up a can of you know what. But before we let you
at least one hot take, so
and
this will be a hot take.
All right, so there we go. So before we let y'all go, we want to let you guys know that you could get 20% off and free shipping with code BTG at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code BTG. Unlock your confidence, and as always, use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. And we just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in on the Nothing But Net channel here on Dash Radio. If you want to follow me or Austin, you can go to Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Look up BTG NBA Pod. We're there for all three of those things. And on all of those pages, you can find our individual links, our links to Off the Ball Network. Go to offtheballnetwork.com for all your sports needs. Austin, say something nice to the people.
Well, we work hard, but the reason if you go on Twitter and just search BTG, our show is the first one that comes up now is because you guys, follow the show. So thank you everybody for listening. We're going to try to keep bringing you more and better content all the time and keep working hard and doing our best. So we'll be here and we hope you are too.
That's all we can do. So on behalf of the Breaking the Game show here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, on behalf of the Off the Ball Network, we have been Breaking the Game. We will catch up with you guys next time. Come look us up anywhere podcasts are available for this continued discussion. Search Breaking the Game. We'll catch up with y'all there. Much love, everybody.
Have a good one.
All righty. So, Austin, we are here on the podcast now on Breaking the Game, and we have had a great show, man. We've talked about LeBron James and Luka and Mark Cuban complaining about the play-in tournament. We've talked about coaching rumors between Terry Stotts and Nate Bjorkrin. And now we have come to the moment where we're going to get into a subject that you're super passionate about, followed by a subject that I'm super passionate about. And it's like we're just getting started with a whole brand new show here.
Before we get too heated here, can I ask you a question about something earlier in the show?
You can ask me anything.
So we were talking about how the Portland Trailblazers get better. Mm-hmm. I was thinking to myself, what if they did trade Damian Lillard? Where would you want to see him go?
LA. I think LA would be good because we were talking about how AD can't be the best player on your team.
Yeah, that's a good point.
LeBron James is winding down. Apparently, he's never going to be LeBron James again based off of this injury.
He's on one leg for the rest of his career.
He's just a hobbled old man. He is old. I'm not trying to say that.
I mean, I remember ankle sprains being awful when I was 15. I'm sure it's pretty bad. If I ever did enough exercise and physical activity to sprain my ankle now, I can't imagine how long I'd be out.
Absolutely. But Austin, I'm ready for you to unload on this topic because
I'm ready to go.
We on the Off the Ball Network at large are a New York Knicks, friendly space. And so before you even unload, I just want to give you praise that you have been a supporter of the New York Knicks.
Oh, yes.
On this show a heck of a lot longer than me. Took me a long time to come around. I'm even admitting now that Julius Randle is and deserves to be the most improved player of the year based on Jeremy Grant missing too much time. So before you even get going on this, I want everyone who's listening and watching to know that Austin Carr is a friend of the New York Knicks. 100%. So Austin, Julius Randle was awarded as Eastern Conference Player of the Month, playing very well. He averaged 27.1 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 6.3 assists per game, while the Knicks have had the Eastern Conference best record at 11-4. Now, Austin, fun fact, he is the first Knick since Carmelo Anthony in 2014 to earn the award. This argument is passable and in some people's eyes justifiable for Julius Randle to get this, but you're about to make a case that Russell Westbrook may have had one of the best months in NBA history. Floor is yours.
Okay, so I hate that Julius Randle had to have this, great of a month, this exact month. That it just happened to be him, and it sucks because I'm a big Julius Randle fan. You read those numbers off: 27, 9, and 6, and that's a player of the month stat line right there, especially best record in the East. But are you kidding me? Russell Westbrook had 14 triple doubles. 14 triple doubles in a month. He's one behind in a month what second place, which is Jokic, has for the season. He's real close to breaking the all-time record, which I remember vividly saying out loud that record would never be broken before Westbrook's career, when I was probably in high school, and never thought it would. Never thought that the triple-double average for a season was something that would ever even be sniffed. I don't think it would ever even come close to it. I thought, well, it was so far long ago, and read about the league and how many teams there were and how ahead of his time Robertson was, that, well, that's all that was. It was just an aberration and that'll never happen. And Westbrook goes out there and does it with ease, it seems like now.
This is his fourth season.
Less than halfway through the first quarter of the game against the Pacers the other night, he had, I think, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and 2 points in the first 4 minutes of the game. I mean, he's close to. There's nights where he could almost push it and get a triple double in a quarter. It's just unreal. And I'm not here for people saying, "Oh, he's stat padding," because there's a lot of guys that are really worried about their stats in the NBA, and if they could get a triple double every game, they would. I mean,
but Austin, no. The story is though that if other players wanted or cared enough to average a triple-double that a number of them could go out and do what Russell Westbrook is doing.
I don't believe that for a second, because I think there's plenty of guys. Think about how much money is involved, even if you take out winning or success. Stats equal a big time payday in the NBA. And if you could sit there and point to 40 triple doubles in a season, you're going to get paid. And that's what, you either want to win titles or you want to get rich and famous, or you can want both. And there can be other things, but those are the two kind of driving things with a lot of people in the NBA. And you want to go down as one of the greatest ever. And I don't know how people knock a guy who's focused on statistical dominance because he wants to be the best and is going out there getting rebounds, which how I feel about how valuable rebounding is.
Yes.
Setting up his teammates for easy baskets and scoring. He's not a ball hog because he's averaging over 13 assists a game the last month.
He just put up 20 assists the other night and 20 rebounds. He became
the first player ever with 2 20 assist, 20 rebound games in his career. He was tied with Wilt Chamberlain as the only player to have 1, and now he's got 2. And thinking about Wilt Chamberlain, the stuff that he does and the stats that he has in the record books, it sounds like he was an alien that came out of the sky and at the beginning of basketball, and he was so much better than everybody. It was insane. But who knows?
So maybe Bill Russell.
Maybe they didn't appreciate him as much as they should have. The way people don't appreciate Russ as much as they should. I hear these comparisons, and no offense to these guys, but he's his career, and I think as a player, he's significantly better than a guy like Damian Lillard. And I hear people all the time in when they're comparing him, people take Lillard because he contributes to winning more, is a lot of the arguments I hear. How do you when Russ gets a triple double, his teams win. When he doesn't, they lose. Most of the time, especially the first year he did it, they won almost every single game that he had a triple double, and they barely squeaked into the playoffs, and he was all because of him. And they say, oh, well, he shoots your team out of a game. Your team wouldn't have been in that game in the first place if it weren't for the 14 assists that he had and the 27 points. And the only thing he can't really do offensively well is shoot from out. And he gets hot sometimes from mid range, and it's like unbelievable how many shots he'll hit in a row. And then other nights he can't hit the broadside of a barn, but he's still at 32 years old or however old he is as a point guard. He's got size, but he's not huge. He just goes right in on everybody. He's a force, gets downhill, and nobody can stop him still to this day. And it's mind-boggling to me that he wasn't the player of the month after he set the record for triple doubles in a month. And his team won a bunch of games. 6 weeks ago, they were in last place, and they're going to make the playoffs. And it's because of him. Bradley Beal was there all year healthy, and they didn't do a thing. Russell was hurt, and I think he's completely healthy now because he looks like Russell Westbrook again. First half of the season, I thought he might be, coming towards the point of his career, he might be done, because I feel like with him, when he reaches that cliff, he's just going to fall right off of it, because his athleticism is why he's so, dominant right now. But I don't know what he's ever done wrong that people don't like him, that he doesn't really get nearly as much credit as he deserves. I think it's one of these things.
He doesn't take flack from media.
We're gonna miss him when he's gone so much more than people really understand. And think about in 20 years when you're telling, 20 years when your kids have kids, maybe, Stephen, you're gonna be telling your grandkids like, oh man, you can't imagine what Russell Westbrook was like. And they're going to think about that the way we thought about Oscar Robertson. Oh, well, whatever. That was so long ago.
Yeah, that'll never happen again.
That'll never happen. We need to appreciate it. And it's exactly what you said. Steph Curry is cute and cuddly, and it's big bad Russ. He's out here yelling and growling at everybody and wants to, get into it with everybody, and he doesn't take anything from anybody. And he rubs some people the wrong way.
He's a dog, man.
Has he ever really had a scandal or done anything actually wrong?
I can't think of a single thing that he's ever done wrong.
Not really. And you never heard a bad thing about him as a teammate at all. The only bad thing I ever heard anyone say about him was KD said he couldn't shoot. And that's not a secret. So he's a world-renowned in his leadership and his effort. And everybody talks about how when, Russ set the tone in practice in Oklahoma City, and everybody followed in line with him. So you can't knock the guy for really anything in terms of what he does on or off a basketball court.
He tries too hard, maybe. Like that's about it.
I don't know. I guess if I had a guy that could go out and get me 15 assists every night, 15 points, and he's going to crash the boards, am I trying to take the ball out of his hands to spread the stats around? Why would I do that? He can do everything that a team that doesn't have a guy like this has to get a rebound, pass it to an outlet guy, get somebody open down the court, and 2-3 passes to try to get a fast break. Russ can grab it off the rim and in 3 seconds be on the other end of the court and dunking it on you. So why not?
Or putting the other team in foul trouble.
Exactly. Or
so
pass
Austin,
it out to an open shooter.
So here we go, Austin. Now, my least favorite thing that is being said about any sort of individual accolade at all is team success somehow ties into player of the month. Now, I'm getting so fed up, Austin, of team success being you can't be player of the week. You can't be, you can't earn, the NBA Cares Award now with depending on your team record. I started joking around in our group chat, I believe it was Josh Hart the other day posted about, pineapples don't belong on pizza. And I put in the group chat, is this opinion valid, even though that his team's in 12th place in the Western Conference right now? Winning is important, obviously, overall for the point of the game. But you know what you get for winning in the regular season, Austin?
What do you get?
You get home court advantage in the playoffs.
Right.
That's your reward. That's what you get for winning.
You know how you get to where you become a winner, Steven?
How's that?
You have to have some good young players on teams that aren't winning first. That's how they start winning, usually.
Don't tell anybody.
So you can't have basically it sounds like you're telling me you can't have a good player and be a team that's not winning, right?
Well, and so Austin, hear me out, because the reason I even bring this up is because, yes, again, in our group chat, people were saying, but the Knicks were winning. The Knicks were winning. The Knicks, yes, they did have the best record. Okay. But Julius Randle's stats pale in comparison. I'm sorry. They pale in comparison to averaging a triple-double on good efficiency. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to point to winning, I would like to also point out that the Wizards won just as many games that month as the Knicks. They just happened to play one more game than them for the month and lost that extra game. So instead of going 11-4, they were 11-5. But apparently that's enough to negate averaging a triple-double. I don't understand. It's again some media outlets, and I'm not trying to make this like a New York Knicks bash session. And again, I know that you aren't either because you're pro Knick. Mm-hmm. It's the New York media and the influence that they have, especially when they're playing well over a team like DC. What type of media presence do they have? Ben Golliver writes for the Washington Post, and he's been on this show. He's, we've interviewed him, but he's based out of LA. So their most well-known writer doesn't even live in the area. The best Knicks writers live in the city. They have a beat on the fan base, and they have their own following, and people love them.
And there's 100 of them.
There's a million of them. Frank. We listen to Frank Isola in the morning. He's kind of a Knick and Nets guy. Right. But it's just crazy to me that you lose one less game, but you have won just as many games as the Wizards. But you want to point to the fact that the Knicks are winning. That's why Julius Randle won Player of the Month. We're talking about Player of the Month. Why is team success the derivative fact?
Who in this calendar month was the best player is all it really should matter. Who played the best, not whose team won the most.
And most valuable player, I understand that winning plays an aspect of that, but most improved player doesn't matter.
You can argue, the Knicks are winning, so Randle is contributing to winning. Well, Westbrook's winning with a roster that's not even as good as the Knicks roster. So
no, not at all.
It's an argument that's just pointless.
And I got to the point to where I saw that Anthony Edwards, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek, but I kind of mean it. When Anthony Edwards was like, he won Rookie of the Month, I'm like, well, how can that be when Jalen Smith plays for the Phoenix Suns? Right. Now, granted, he only averages 4 minutes per game, but I mean, man, his impact of winning, he practices against DeAndre Ayton. His impact to DeAndre Ayton in practice is apparently translating out to the court. Look at where the Suns were last year without him compared to this year with Jalen Smith. I mean, come on.
Hughes in Utah, same situation.
I mean, hello, here we go.
Guys
So
belong in the conversation, don't they?
If winning is the main factor, we can get stupid with it, and I don't want to, but I'm just saying, like, we need to dial back that the winning is the most important thing to every single little award, because what you get when you win is home court advantage. If you get extra all-star votes or all-star nods, I don't agree with that, but that, to me, that's okay. I can live with that. But if you're critiquing player of the month with winning, like, come on, you lost one more game than the Knicks, so you averaging a triple-double isn't as big of a deal as you averaging 27, 9, and 6, which, again, is great. I don't want to hate on Julius Randle. It's just that I'm getting a little tired of the narrative and the standards. Again, that's why I kind of named this episode Standards in the NBA also.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you used the word standards, because I really wish and think that the NBA needs to create standards for these awards. Like, come out and clarify what the criteria is and which awards team success matters more for and doesn't. I think that would be really nice, because from one year to the next, the argument for who should win the MVP and why completely changes. One year it's because we've never seen a 36-year-old do this before. And the next year it's because this guy did it single-handedly. He was the only star on his team, and he took his team. Look how good they were. And then the couple years with Giannis, it's really how I feel like it should be. This the best player, statistically, he's been the best player for 2 years. And there's just a lot of different ways people take MVP, and the ambiguity kind of sucks anymore. It used to be kind of fun and cute, but the older I get, the more it's like, I would like to know how this is supposed to go. And am I supposed to think this guy won for this set of reasons or this set of reasons? Because it would just clarify so much. And then I don't really like awards being part of contract incentives either.
Preach, dude.
I think that's weird too, because it's voted on by a bunch of other people. And hey, if they voted on you, now you can make $20 million more than you could if they didn't vote on you.
Or Klay Thompson not being an All-NBA team member missed out on a hefty pay raise.
Exactly. And if you replace 2 or 3 of the voters with somebody else who looks at it differently, and this guy just made a ton more money, I think it should be based off of like statistics and percent and how many games you play and things like that.
And it depends on the award. It depends on the award. For most improved player, it doesn't matter. It's where you were last season or your whole career prior to last season compared to this season. Like, it's not like who wins in a one-on-one contest between all the candidates. That's not.
I mean, when Oladipo came over to the Pacers, I think he won most improved player, or he was in the running. I don't know for sure if he won, but the Pacers weren't good. Like, they might have made the playoffs, but his team didn't get better from one year to the next or win a bunch of games. So you're saying he shouldn't have been in the running for most improved player, even though he went from like a no name in Oklahoma City to the best player on his team in a very short period of time.
Or Devontae Graham last season being like, who knew who he even was?
There's levels to these kinds of things, and you shouldn't be putting MVP criteria on every single award. You shouldn't be putting, first team All NBA criteria on every single award, because all we're going to be doing is awarding the same 10 guys then over and over again.
Yeah, I'm with it. So, all right, that was your, you feel better?
I got one more thing.
Okay, let's hit it.
So I just want to say that I'm going to be called crazy for this, and I know I am, but
that's cool.
This whole Russell Westbrook thing has got me thinking. I want to know, what do you think of him in terms of point guard hierarchy all time? Where would you put him?
So I'll give you my criteria so you understand. I know that criteria based on this conversation is important to you. So when I tell you this, I'm going to let you know that I don't factor in just how great you are. Like, I'm not going to say who wins in a one-on-one between Isaiah Thomas and Russell Westbrook. That's not where I'm going with this. So Russell, to me, he is probably, I have a list here. Let's see if I can even pull it up without slowing it down too much.
You want to know what I think?
Go ahead. I would love to know.
I think if he retired right now, I would put him second all time.
I can't do that.
I can't do that. I know you wouldn't. I know.
But it's because solely of like number of MVPs, finals MVPs, all NBA teams, where you like where he stands all time as far as statistics and stuff like that go, that helps him absolutely. Like that's his case, is his all-time ranking in a number of different categories. But the way that I evaluated, the way I digest the game personally, he hasn't won enough at the highest of highest levels, because that, if we're talking about all-time great point guards, it's got to transcend skill. You know what I mean? Because they're all skilled. It can't just be like, well, he can average a triple double. You know, it's got to transcend just overall ability. It's got to be, you know, the aura surrounding you as you know, a champion, as a multiple time MVP, defensive player of the year, all NBA player, stuff like that. So that hurts him. But again, that's not to slight who Russell is as, you know, one of the best in his era to ever do it.
Right. So my thing is, what I don't understand is the difference in the way people talk about an Oscar Robertson, who won, I think, one title. Mm-hmm. Maybe he might have. I think he won one. He might have won two, but played before 90% of the people having this argument were even born. And he's almost regularly at least considered in the top 15 conversation of all
I'm
time.
pulling up my rankings right now. And again, these aren't finalized because I've been editing them throughout the season.
I don't think most people would even consider putting Russ up there. But
I'm going to be honest, I don't even think I have him top 10 right now. But again, I'm editing my stuff throughout the year. So
I'm just saying, like, he's got an MVP award. He's been to the finals. He's had a winning record almost every year of his career. He's unbelievably statistic wise, and
you know, he's 54 and 52 in the playoffs. So that's his playoff record. Yeah.
You know, him and KD probably underachieved a little bit in terms of ability together in the playoffs. And I get the arguments. Believe me, I'm not saying it's a open and shut case, and you can't convince me that your opinion on it is just as good or your guy is just as good. But I think for me, it's, and I might get killed for this again too, I think it's going to be Steph Curry and then Russ all time when they retire for me. That's just my personal feeling.
So right now I have him overall amongst everyone. I have him 52nd all time among all positions.
Ooh, man, I did definitely have him without even thinking about the guys, I'd have him top 50.
Well, again, I'm working on it, so he's probably going to bump up. But you know, I'm not going to read them all. But you know, I have him underneath Willis Reed, Hal Greer, Reggie Miller, Paul Pierce, Clyde Drexler. I'm scrolling here: David Robinson, Gary Payton, John Havlicek.
Those guys you were saying, or behind
Oscar Robertson, Moses Malone, Bill Russell, obviously MJ. But guys, I have him ahead of. All right, so. James Harden, George Gervin, Rick Barry, Dwight Howard, Chris Webber, Kevin McHale, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, Dennis Rodman, Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning, Tiny Archibald, Chris Mullin. So great players behind him, great players in front of him.
And I'm not going to sit here and cry, oh, poor Russ. You know, like nobody cares about him, and look how good he is, and nobody thinks it. I know he's good. I know the names you're naming off are all timers, and any team beyond that list is great, but I just feel like this is one of those situations where we're not going to really appreciate. Either we're not going to appreciate, or it wasn't as important as it's going to seem like it was in 40 or 50 years. Because it sounds to me like Oscar Robertson had one of the most incredible careers and impactful seasons in NBA history. And maybe it just wasn't the case at the time, because they didn't really talk about him like they do, you know, Kareem and Wilt and Russell. They talk about him a lot, but not quite like those guys. So maybe it's just that kind of situation that it because he didn't win a lot or just was never on like one of these all-time teams, that it's not as important historically as it's going to sound in 50 years. I just feel like, man, I never thought I'd be in a situation in the NBA where I'm seeing something that it hit me in real time. Like, this is never going to happen. Like, and I just feel like that's where we're at with him.
And again, he's rarefied air. Like, he's gonna have it. Feels Steph like it feels like he needs his own little category almost.
If you flip flop those two guys and you put Russ on those Warriors teams, he may not win the first title, but he's winning those two with KD there.
I mean, he's had KD on a team. Granted, they were younger, so
I'm just saying. If you switch for those 3 years, I think he wins two of those three for sure, and who knows.
I think it's really difficult to. I mean, obviously, there's conjecture and speculation, and opinion, and the way you observe the game. That's all in there.
I'm kind of surprised you had Gary Payton that high.
I mean, I could give you reasoning.
All for it. Yeah. I trust your judgment. It's just surprising when they hear I have them pretty high. Most people, I feel like, don't really.
That's okay. I mean, not everybody shares the same opinion, but
I know. I was just curious. This is interesting.
Yeah,
I'll let you get into your thing here, Steven. I'm excited to see you get going.
I mean, as much as I can get going, right? So I'm going to label this award standards, and I just found it so funny. And I knew at some point I was going to deep dive into this and not agree with certain aspects of it. But before I do that, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So I found out today on Twitter via Howard Beck, who is very plugged into the league. He got it that certain players are going to be able to be voted in multiple positions now. And some players that I'm going to name have had that ability too, but we're getting into more of this almost positionless basketball for all NBA votes. And just to kind of throw it out there already, I just wish that they would get rid of the positions already because
awards, especially
because right now it looks like they're crawling that way. And I'll just get into it, Austin. So, right now it's been put out that Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, Karl Anthony Towns, and Draymond Green are all eligible to play both or to be voted as both center and forward for all NBA teams. So for people who don't know the way all NBA, nope. We'll get into that. Nope. So again, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, Karl Anthony Towns, and Draymond Green. They're all able to be voted in as center or forward. Now, this is significant because the way that the All-NBA teams work for now is that you vote 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center, and you have 3 All-NBA teams. So now they're kind of making it to where certain players can be voted in for multiple positions. Now, as far as the guard/forward people who are eligible for both are Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Zach LaVine, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, Ben Simmons, and Devin Booker. Again, they're all eligible to be voted in as guards or forwards. Now, for the restrictions, Austin, Giannis Antetokounmpo and Zion Williams are only eligible to be voted in as forwards, and Rudy Gobert and Clint Capela are only eligible to be voted in as centers. So the way that this comes across to me when I first read this is like, okay, the NBA obviously wants certain players to be at certain spots, and they want certain players to be all NBA first teams, and they're just saying it without saying it here, right? Mm-hmm. And when I read this, I was like, okay, I can't just let this sit at face value. I mean, Austin, you know me well enough. So I'm like, okay, but why? Why are certain players able to be voted in multiple positions? And after doing research, I've come to the determination that it's because they just look like they can. Right. Because there's no substantial evidence that you can point to, and we're about to point to some, that you can point to and say, this player has earned the opportunity to be able to be voted in at multiple positions in order to make an all-star berth. So, or an all-NBA berth, excuse me.
The all-NBA 3 teams mean you're one of the 3 best players at that position, right? Or I guess if it's guard and forward, so 6.
Yeah, right? So basically there's 3 levels, 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center all the way through. So there's 3 centers available, there's 6 forwards and 6 guards. Right?
So they're basically saying that Joel Embiid could be voted as one of the top 3 power forwards in the NBA this year.
No, just forwards.
Forwards, yeah.
That's grouped in with small forwards. Yeah.
Okay. So, that's ridiculous. Go ahead.
You want to get into ridiculous, Austin? I'm going to read through some of these. This is per Cleaning the Glass, which is a website that I love. You hear me plug Synergy a lot. I also love Cleaning the Glass. They log how many minutes and a percentage associated with that a player plays multiple positions. So not only do they just keep, your traditional counting stats and stuff like that, but they keep where they are in percentile in certain statistics like turnover ratio, turnover percentage, yada, 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 all that fun stuff. They also keep up with how many minutes and the percentage associated with those minutes that a player has played every position, not just the ones that they've played, but even if they haven't played a position, right? So Joel Embiid has played 0 minutes at point guard, Austin, right, which is grouped in with shooting guard, so that would be guard eligible. Obviously, right. Joel is not going to be that, but just for an instance. So, however, Joel Embiid is eligible as a forward.
Right.
Joel Embiid has played 1% of his entire season at power forward, 0 at small forward.
But he can be one of the 6 best forwards. Okay.
But he could be one of the 6 best forwards in the NBA. Nikola Jokic has played 1% of his time this season at power forward. Anthony Davis, this is going to be one of the bigger variations that we're going to get into, has played 11% of his time at center. So in relation to what we're seeing with the other centers, you would like, 11% is bigger than 1%. So yeah, that works. Right. I'm not a big fan of that standard. Bam Adebayo has played 1% of his time as a forward. Karl Anthony Towns has played 9% of his time as a forward. And Draymond Green has played. Now, this one makes sense. Draymond Green has played 57% of his time at power forward, 43% of his time at center. I buy that. That's a good split.
That's one so far.
That's a good split. All right, so Rudy Gobert, who can only be voted in as a center, has played 100% of his minutes at center. Totally fine with that.
Right.
Now, Clint Capela has played 99% of his time at center. He has also played 1% of his time, just like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and Bam Adebayo. He has played 1% of his total minutes at power forward, not eligible to be voted in as a forward. See the inconsistency there.
Right.
Devin Booker, who is eligible to be voted in as a guard and a forward, has only played 6% of his time at a forward position.
I'm surprised it's that high.
Zach LaVine has only played 6% of his time as a forward. He has played shooting guard and has also played 9% of his time at point guard. Ben Simmons, this one shocked me, Austin. 100% of his minutes. What position do you think that Ben Simmons has played 100% of his minutes?
I mean, I just have, since it's 100%, I got to say point guard because I've seen him play point guard.
100%. But he's eligible to be voted.
That's surprising.
I was shocked. So he has played 100% of his time at point guard, but is eligible to be voted in as a forward without playing any exclusive minutes there. Jimmy Butler has played 1% of his time as a guard, is eligible to be voted in as both. Paul George has played 18% of his time at guard, so a little bit higher, but still, because it's relative, you're almost grading on a curve. You're like, okay, well, 18%, you got to put them in there. That's still not a lot of time.
This two position thing in other sports is like for the couple guys that play like 50-50, like Draymond. And that's it.
So how about this? Kawhi Leonard, who is eligible to be voted in as a guard, has played 0% of his time at the point guard or shooting guard. But he can be a guard, though. You can vote him as a guard.
Well, he's about the same size as his teammate Paul George, who's played
exactly. He looks like he could be a guard, right? So, Chris Middleton has only played 2% of his time at guard. He's played 65% at the 3, 32% at the 4. How about this, Austin? 1% of his time at center.
Yeah.
By some of these guys' logic, he can't be a center.
That doesn't make sense.
LeBron James has only played 16% of his time as a guard, is able to be voted in as a guard or a forward. Jason Tatum has played only 3% of his time as a guard, able to be both. Now, listen, Jaylen Brown has played 36% of his time at the 2, 56% of his time at the 3.
Jaylen Brown kind of is an in-between.
I buy that one. If you're flirting with like 30%, okay. I think that's kind of like my threshold for tolerance.
Me too.
So Giannis, who can only be voted in as a forward, has played 2% of his time at the 3, 86% of his time at the 4. How about this, Austin? 12% of his time at the 5, which is greater than what AD has played at the 5.
Which is greater than like half the guys you just named that are allowed to play other positions.
Anthony Davis can be voted in as a forward or a center, but not Giannis, even though he's spent more of his time at the center position than Anthony Davis. All right, and this is the last one. Zion Williamson can only be voted in as a forward. He's played 1% at the 2, 10% at the 3, 85% at the 4, and 4% at the 5. So again,
it's sounding like eventually they're going to have him bringing the ball down the court if they get to their wish. That's what I've heard. What the heck?
Again, dude, so how can you justify any of this logic other than the NBA just pulling it out from where the sun doesn't shine and saying that this dude looks like he can play here, but we don't like the way this dude plays, so he can only be restricted to these areas?
Well, if they were going off of, I kind of thought that too, but Draymond, if he weren't 50-50, would be weird because he doesn't really look like a center, and so that would kind of throw that one out.
But we know that he plays it.
I know, but it just there's no rhyme or reason to it.
And really. He's not going to be voted in anyway. No. So like the one guy
there's no to this coming out other than some guy looked at it and they were sitting there thinking, okay, these are the guys that we need to get in these spots, and how do we make this happen? And that's why this whole idea that sports are rigged in any kind of way is silly to me, because the NBA, if the NBA was actually did this to try to make sure certain guys could get on these all on one of these three teams, they didn't even try to hide it. They didn't even try to act.
I think they did though. I wholeheartedly think
why would LeBron at it?
Why would Kawhi Leonard be eligible to be voted in as a guard?
Right. So
and spent zero time
cover up a game that was fixed. No way in the world somebody would figure it out in 5 minutes.
How many fans do you think would independently research like how we did, Austin?
Enough to cause an issue, but it's all NBA awards, and you and I are two of the few people that are going to care this much about it. Yeah. But I just don't think that what else? What's the other explanation? At least have it be somewhat logical. It's not at all. Not even close. You showed me that list that you had. And there's guys that the percentages are identical, and one can do this, and one can do this, and one can't. And then Giannis isn't a center. I mean, if
he spent more time at center than Anthony Davis,
if Kawhi Leonard plays as a guard, Giannis can be a center. Giannis should be able to be a guard. They shouldn't even have it for awards. It should be the 5 best guys get the most.
Thank you. If you're and that's where I'm getting at, because last season when we did our end of season awards and I kept Anthony Davis off my team, it was because that he says that he does not want to be a center. He doesn't like playing that position. That's just him.
Right.
And then when you looked at his splits, he didn't, in my opinion, play enough at center.
Hmm?
So, but
no, he didn't.
His own words against him and his own play against him, I kept him on the second team. But everyone else was like, let him be a center because he can probably play the center. That's not the criteria. Or it hasn't been. I don't know. I don't know what
not
the criteria
to mention
is.
That if it's like if there's 3 positions and it's the top 6 and 2 of them and the top 3 and 1, why are they even naming most of these guys and where they can be voted as? Because like we're talking about 15 guys and they named some guys that don't even have a chance. Like why even bring it up if it's going to be this stupid and controversial? If they're not going to be in it, make it that way, but don't like advertise it.
When the guy that has the best case in Draymond Green to say it makes the most sense that he can be voted in as a forward or a center, but he has no chance of being voted in. Like he's the one guy you can point to that has any sort of logic behind him being able to be voted in at multiple positions, but he has no shot, dude. He is not going to be an all-NBA player.
No, he doesn't. And I don't know. I think that the whole idea of you can only have 2 guards, and 2 forwards, but you can only have 1 center. Like we've got 3 centers that are probably going to be the top 3 in whatever order you prefer. And
unless one of them is voted in at a 4 because you don't want to discredit their season.
One of them is going to get voted in as a forward because why else would they even make that designation? Oh, Jokic can pass, so he's not just a center because centers can't pass. That's stupid. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think we'll see Embiid and Jokic on a team together. I don't know if it's going to be first team. I mean, it almost has to be if they're gonna be on a team together. It has to be the first team.
Jokic is only going to win the MVP if he does because Embiid got hurt. So if they're both there at the end of the year, you can't have them not both on the first team, can you? If they're both so like a few years ago when Paul George, I think, finished 3rd in MVP voting. You could have made the case that LeBron, KD, and Kawhi Leonard were 3 of the next 4 best players in the NBA when Paul George could have been in there. The first team All NBA team some years could be all like wing players, could be all point guards. Yeah. You know, why does it matter? They're not going out and playing in a tournament. You don't need the best 5 that play the best together. You're just talking about the 5 best players.
And that's where I think that they're going, Austin. I think that they are slowly – I don't know why they don't just rip off the Band-Aid.
Right.
But I think that they're slowly getting it to positionless. And
Zion's only in year 2. He has to wait a little longer.
And Austin, isn't it fitting that they made it to where more centers could get in this season because of where they stood in the MVP conversation? Let's just say that
the big man's extinct, I thought.
Yeah. So let's just say that one of them don't have a season. Do you think, like, we'll just say one of them didn't exist for this year. and only one of them had a great season. Pick who, I don't care. It's for this exercise.
Embiid never came back from his injury.
Embiid never comes back from his injury. So Jokic is the only center that has a shot being a first teamer if it's positionless, right? And that's where I think if it wasn't two centers in the MVP conversation this year, I think they go positionless. But the fact that there were two centers that had such great years, I think that they kind of had to put a stopgap in for this season.
I do too, but I also think it's a little bit of people don't like change, and they don't want to just change something right away because it's the way we've always done it. I hate
inside the NBA would just be
it's
shaking
the way
their
we've always
fist.
done it. Oh yeah, I'm not a fan of it's the way we've always done it as a reason why you do something a certain way. Why not give it a try some other way? And if it's terrible, it's whatever. Go back to it or change it again.
If you like things the way that we've always done it, go watch MLB, and you can be a part of that miserable
see why
fan base.
Why they're in a distant third in popularity, and I mean they don't seem to matter. It doesn't seem to matter to them. They still make more money than anybody, so whatever. But it's just weird
because they have no salary cap. I mean, if they looked at the salary cap in basketball, I could only imagine.
Think about if they didn't have a salary cap in the NBA.
Oh my goodness, that's a whole another show. It's a whole
LeBron get $80 million for a 1-year contract from every team in the league.
Yeah, LeBron James does not get paid enough. And this is coming from someone who isn't the biggest LeBron James fan in the world.
I saw a thing when he left Cleveland the first time, Steven, that the GDP of the city of Cleveland went down like 24% or something in the first year that he wasn't there. And they talked about like how many restaurants.
That's gross domestic product for people who don't understand.
How many restaurants were less, had less customers, how many hotels weren't as full all year long because people were there to see LeBron, and just the amount of other business that him being there and the Cavaliers being good
just bleeds over
the team. It was just unreal how much money the city lost when he left. I thought that blew me away.
Yeah, but again, Austin, this episode has been labeled standards, and we've touched on the standards of head coaching in the NBA and what the expectation is, and how unforgiving the job can really be. We talked about the standards of the play-in tournament, the standards of the best player in the NBA complaining, possibly affecting his perception among those.
Get over it.
Just get over it.
Extra game.
The standards of an NBA governor unanimously voting for the play-in tournament, and now he's crying about it. The standard of how awards are decided, how individual accolades such as Player of the Month are decided, Austin. So before we go, I want to give you, do you have any parting words for the audience?
Yeah. I think our very own Coach Fa kind of put it best with his candid minute. Just don't complain about stuff. Like it is what it is. You got to go win an extra game. Go win an extra game. If you're the best player in the world or one of the best up and coming superstars, and the two guys that we talked about complaining about it the most, nobody's really going to care that you're upset that you have to play an extra game, and they really shouldn't. This is your job. Go do it. They're not asking for much, and the NBA has collectively bargained. They have the league as a whole and the players have to agree on things before they can really go into effect. So at some point, they had a chance to voice their negative opinion on this and get out of it if enough people wanted to. And it's a horrible look to only complain about it when you're in jeopardy of being in the play-in.
Such poor form.
Because it's fun for everybody else. It's fun for us. It's the teams that might just barely squeak into that 10th spot. It's good for them. It's just suck it up and play the extra game. And
guess what? The season was cut down 10 games.
Right.
You play one more game, and you still played less games than you did last year.
I think a 50-game season every year would be cool, but I don't want to.
That might be too little. I think like a 65.
Yeah, that's somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And then too, I don't want to make it seem like I was speaking lightheartedly at all about the thing in Indiana. It is a big deal. We're talking about a guy's job, somebody whose dream was to coach in the NBA, and you do kind of feel bad for the guy if it goes this bad this early.
Yeah, but 1 year you hardly ever see that. Like we've seen, your Earl Watsons and Larry Fizdale's or David Fizdale, excuse me.
It's hard for me to say this because I don't really want to ever say anybody shouldn't have their job, but if the things that people are saying as rumors are true, he probably should lose his job in a lot of ways there. I've heard some troubling stuff that, it's from a guy who has a friend that works for the Pacers. So who knows how reliable it is. I'm not breaking any news here.
A little telephone game,
But it looks like the team's given up on him. I mean, the Pacers are not as bad as they've looked recently, and it's not even
a better roster all the time.
It's not that they're getting beat all the time or they're getting blown out. They don't look like they care, and that's the worst thing to me. I think you can have for a team that had, a deep playoff run was what their goal was this year, and they're not going to get close. They've got all-star level players. Really, if they're healthy, they've got 3 or 4 guys that are right either at that level or just below it, and it's frustrating to see. So I just I wanted to clarify and make sure nobody thought I was trying to joke about a guy losing his job or anything, or that it wasn't a big deal, because it does suck all the way around, but it looks pretty bad. So.
Yeah. And for anyone who does not know Austin the way that I do, he doesn't have, an ill will towards anybody, professionally. That's not his angle. So
maybe Aaron Rodgers, but not really.
That we're not covering the NFL, so you can say whatever you want about the NFL. So, but Austin, I know you. I know that you didn't mean anything ill will, but I do understand that stepping forward and saying that. But as for myself, I just want to let everyone know that Off the Ball Network, Breaking the Game, is a great place to be. We got great things going on. Please go to offtheballnetwork.com for all of your sports needs. We've got NFL draft coverage stuff up there. Our buddy, Couch Coach Live, just put up his draft grades for each team and the best player and the worst player that was drafted. And it wasn't just like, okay, Micah Parsons was drafted, so he's going to be the best player. There was a little bit of value that went into his analysis as well. Cool. And he just did a show with our buddy Jeff Hunt to discuss his, basically to explain himself and why he had players the way he did. It was a great show. We got a lot of really good things going on at Off the Ball, so please go to offtheballnetwork.com for all your sports needs. Got great stuff going on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. Austin, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, just yesterday I got the opportunity to work with a couple of the newer members of Off the Ball Network with Brian from the All the Hype podcast. He was so nice to have me on his show, and he's got a good thing there for sure. And then Don Juan from Knicks Fans Wilding, he's a lot of fun too. And that show sounds like it's a heck of a good time for sure. So make sure you check those guys out, because they're new, but believe me, they belong for sure. They came to the right place. So
if they're on offtheballnetwork.com, you know that they're going to come correct and that they're going to know what the heck they're talking about. And our buddy Stu just released his basically draft analysis show today, and he's one of the best in the biz. I mean, he's our Colin Cowherd. He can do 3-hour show by himself.
He blows me away at how much he knows about every player in that draft and that stuff, because if football to me, it's like there's so many of them, and 90% of them, even if I was a big college football fan, I hardly ever watched. And he knows everything about every one of those guys. He's great.
Yeah, 7 times 32. That's how many players that he knows about in this draft, not counting those who aren't drafted. Yeah, so, all right, well, that's going to wrap up our show tonight. Just want to thank everyone who tuned in, who came over from the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. If you want to follow myself, you can follow me at StephenBTG. If you want to follow Austin on Twitter, you can follow him at AustinCar10. Yep. You can follow our show in of itself on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at BTG NBA Pod. And again, just please go over to manscaped.com, enter in promo code BTG. We'll hook you up with 20% off for free worldwide shipping. Go get that new lawnmower 4.0. It's a great product. We wouldn't steer you wrong.
It costs like $20 to ship a 2-ounce card from Canada. So international shipping's not cheap. Go ahead and take advantage of it if you can.
For sure. And Austin and I, we wouldn't endorse a product that we ourselves do not use. We use it. We love it.
I just sent my brother and his family a whole big package of stuff.
So there you go. You can't beat that. So again, on behalf of the Breaking the Game show, on behalf of the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, for offtheballnetwork.com, this has been Breaking the Game. We'll catch up with you guys next time. Much love, everybody.
Have a good one.